breakfast, or was that?
I do sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
I do. I like breakfast. It's a great meal. It's fun. And
Do you cook?
I do.
Okay.
A little bit.
A little bit. All right.
I can throw it down. I have a few dishes that I make, and the kids will eat it.
Standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kids will eat it, which is important.
Yes, especially when you have 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they all have different diets. Everybody's got a
course.
different thing, and
Yeah.
I've got 3 different allergies, food allergies. So it's always like you're making 3 different meals.
All right, so I am Laura Cathcart-Robbins, and this is The Only One in the Room. But as you know, I'm never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co-host, Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hi, honey.
Hi, Hun. I could not be more excited about today's guest, my friend, my sister, Miss Holly Robinson Peete.
Yes, I've heard so much about you over the years. It's really great to have you here on the show.
Thrilled to be here.
Good.
I'm so glad you're here. We go way back. So before I even met you, like when I moved to LA in 1988, I was a fan of yours. And I was one of the many, many, many thousands of people or hundreds of thousands who followed the tabloids about your relationship with this certain head of the class actor and was rooting for you guys.
Truth? That's true?
Oh, hon, you're talking about Brian Robbins, your ex-husband?
Exactly. So we're going to get all the way into that. But first, let me introduce this woman properly. Holly Robinson Peete is an actress, singer, author, television personality, spokesperson, activist, advocate, and trailblazer. You all know her from her hit series 21 Jump Street, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, For Your Love. You might know her from Jackson's The American Dream, Celebrity Apprentice, or The Talk, or so much more. Really fun fact, her father, Matt Robinson, was the original Gordon on Sesame Street, who everyone loved and loves. He gave Holly her first on-screen role on his show when she was 6, is that right?
5.
5. Oh. Well, I want to talk about that in a minute, too, because it's a really funny story. Holly is a Sarah Lawrence grad who just received an honorary doctorate in fine arts from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia last week. That is so cool. You also gave the commencement speech, right?
I did. Wow.
Yeah. Is that your first
It was
honorary
my
doctorate?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all my kids are instructed to call me Dr. Peete.
There you go.
From now on.
Well, that's what I will call you from now on.
You don't have to, but they do.
All right. Holly's had 2 reality shows, For Pete's Sake in 2016 and Meet the Peets in 2018 and 19. Concurrently, she is also the star of not 1, not 3, but 5 morning show mystery movies on the Hallmark Channel. I'm not really sure how you've done 5 of those in such quick succession, but we'll talk about that too.
Yes.
After her father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, Holly and her husband, Rodney Peete, co-founded the Holly Rod Foundation, which is dedicated to assisting those living with Parkinson's and autism. So, I know you just went back to Philly to get that doctorate, Dr. Peete, but you also grew up there. So,
I did.
What was that like?
Oh, growing up in Philly is awesome. And Philly has a very special town. That's why you see so many people who are from there really always singing its praises.
Yeah.
I grew up with my mom and dad and my brother Matt, and we lived in a little town called Mount Airy, which is just a little suburb in Philly. And Mount Airy was unique at the time because it was so perfectly integrated.
Yeah.
I mean, there's our house. We're a black family, then you had a Jewish family, then you had a Catholic family, then you had a Japanese family, and you had, I'm telling you, it was the melting pot, these few blocks. And so I just grew up thinking all neighborhoods were like that. All neighborhoods had people who looked different, and we celebrated Hanukkah with the Goldbergs across the street. They came over to our house and celebrated Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, I probably knew what Ramadan was before most people I know that are my age. So that was an awesome neighborhood, just block parties and all of that. I think the big turning point for us was when my dad got Sesame Street. I was 5 years old, and Sesame Street shot in New York. My dad was a local television writer, producer, brilliant guy who was always, sort of looking to get to that next place.
Yeah.
You got this show called Sesame Street, and that was 50 years ago.
I think your dad might have been one of my first crushes because he was so kind and so handsome and so sweet.
Yeah.
And just the idea that it was okay. Like, I loved my dad. I loved him. I wanted to marry him when I was 4. Like, I was trying to figure out how that could work, right? And to have this man who was kind to everybody and that was okay to have those feelings for because he was on Sesame Street and everybody loved him. that permission was so nice, and he was so lovable.
He was, but I mean, Gordon was a lot to live up to. He was kind of like America's daddy, you know,
right.
And remember, he was the very first person you ever heard on episode 1 of Sesame Street. Hi, I'm Gordon, and welcome to Sesame Street. And by the way, this is Big Bird, and here's Ernie and Bert. He introduced these iconic characters and Muppets to the world. It was a very complicated man, so brilliant, Laura. When I tell you this man was so smart and so brilliant that it was almost intimidating.
Yeah.
When your dad is that smart. He knew everything about the world. He knew everything about politics. He was articulate. He was a writer. He was a singer. He was an actor. He could do anything.
Yeah.
So he was a really interesting guy, but with a very complicated background and childhood that complicated him as a person. But yeah, what an amazing guy. And when I think about the iconic legacy that he left with his Sesame Street appearances and what he brought to the table. He also developed a Muppet with Jim Henson named Roosevelt Franklin. And Roosevelt Franklin was rapping and doing hip-hop.
I remember.
Before hip-hop was invented. Like, he was almost a little too ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And then probably about 4 years in, my dad didn't want to be the face of. He didn't like people invading his privacy or being a star. He didn't like any of that. So he chose to leave and go behind the scenes and do more writing, producing, and he went on to produce and write for many popular sitcoms like The Jeffersons and Eight is Enough and The Waltons and Sanford and Son. So he did some amazing things in his lifetime.
Well, so he progressed then in the career. He evolved to that role that was a better suited role for him.
Yeah, he did. He wanted to be behind the scenes. He had big dreams about the things he could write, and there was nothing he couldn't write. He wrote plays. He wrote musicals. He wrote books. He wrote screenplays for movies. He wrote sitcom scripts. He was just a prolific writer, and he had 18 different lanes, and it was pretty remarkable to watch him do his thing. He was a great guy, wasn't a great husband. If my mom was here, and you know my mom, and she's very outspoken, by the way.
Yes.
And I'm sure as soon as she hears me on here, she'll call for her invite.
Well, you know I want her on.
Well,
so, yes.
Okay. Batten down the hatches, girl, because she's coming. Miss 83 and fabulous.
Okay. And hiking.
Yeah. Oh, you saw her hiking?
I saw her hiking, yes.
We tried to call her while she was on her hike. She said, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a waterfall. My mom is, figuring out her next chapter at 83, so she's pretty amazing. But, my mom... I'll be really honest, my mom kind of feels some kind of way sometimes when I start lifting my dad to the to the heavens, because my dad was not a great husband.
Right.
And he struggled to be a loving husband and in some cases, a loving dad too. So my mom hears me talking about him. She's like, just remind everybody all the crap he put me through. But just so you know, like full circle, she was the last person to be with. They were divorced when I was 6 or 7.
Yeah.
She was the last person to be with him before he passed away. Like she went to him and played jazz music for him when he was like couldn't speak. When she had a full circle journey with him.
She forgave him.
She did. She forgave him, and she moved on, and that was a powerful lesson example for me and Matt, my brother.
Wow. So this is your dad. You're growing up in Philly. You end up at Sarah Lawrence, where you study French.
Yes.
And philosophy, is that right? Psychology. And is acting in the realm there? Are you thinking I'm going to...
Yes and no. So I wanted to be a singer at the time.
Okay. Because you have an amazing voice.
I have a
beautiful
pretty good voice. I have a pretty good voice.
Yeah.
But in that time, like 18, 19 years old, I was finding that voice. And Sarah Lawrence College was such a nurturing playground for me to learn. I mean, there was something there called Workshop Theater, which was a theater, kind of like more of a funky groundlings kind of theater company on campus. And they had something called Song Class. And Song Class was when singers on the campus would rehearse a song all week and then perform a song every week. And people would come far and wide from that little tiny campus to see me and hear me sing. And I would do everything from, Natalie Cole to Whitney Houston to the Pointer Sisters and even some Led Zeppelin. I would do some really fun interpretations, and I loved to sing. So that was my lane at the time. So the French and the psychology was something, and Sarah Lawrence is a very cool open curriculum where you can really design whatever you want to study. So that was perfect for me to nurture my singing, to do that. And then I got a little restless, so I would go down to the city. So Sarah Lawrence is about a 30-minute train ride down to New York. And I would go down and I would sing and do these dessert bar singing gigs at night to make a little money. and just kind of nurture that craft down there.
Hasn't she been performing in showcases in New York?
Ryan has been performing.
Yeah.
And
Ryan, your oldest daughter.
Yes, my 21-year-old twin daughter. She has been gigging.
Mm-hmm. I saw a couple
She's
pictures.
Such a different artist than
you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She we can't even identify the genre that she sings, really. It's like her own genre. I thought it was really cute what I came up with, which was soul folk. How cute is that?
It's really cute.
She didn't like it. She's more folk. Like she thinks she's more pure folk, but she's not. When I think of folk music, I think of like Peter, Paul, and Mary, and I don't know who I think of for my generation, but everything is. All the genres are bending now. But she's got like Tracy Chapman meets Corinne Bailey Rae meets. She's got a Michelle Ndegeocello. She has a really different vibe. Okay. And so anyway, watching her do this singing thing is totally different. Does
it bring you back though to when you were?
It does, except I was a little bit more of a hustler.
Okay.
I was like crawling back to the Sarah Lawrence campus at midnight from singing all night and then going to my classes in the morning. Mm-hmm. Ryan is kind of like, she'll gig on the weekend here and there. I was like I was stacking my chips.
Right.
I was like, so I was a little bit more like, I don't know how long this is going to last. I didn't know how long I was going to be on my parents' dime. Mm-hmm. So I made the best of it.
I still think of you that way, by the way.
As a hustler?
Yes. You're always like, it feels like not that you come from a place of scarcity, but that you come from a place of preparing for, I don't know how long this is going to last.
Right.
So let me make the most of whatever this is.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That is 100% true.
Okay, so you're gigging, singing is your thing. Mm-hmm. How do you transition into acting?
So after, I want to say around let me go back. Mm-hmm. So in Philadelphia, great city and a great, Mount Airy, that little neighborhood I was telling you about that's so perfectly integrated.
Yeah.
And then my dad is doing his thing in New York. My mom was like, I got to get out of here. So she packed us up in a Volvo, an old Volvo, and we drove to California. She had a friend named Cleavon Little, who was a famous actor on the movie Blazing Saddles. Yeah. Legendary, amazing actor. He was going to Broadway to do something, and he had a house on the beach in Malibu. He said, you and your kids can stay here till you get on your feet.
That's how you ended up in Malibu.
That's how we ended up in Malibu.
Okay.
Now, I'm the 9-year-old in the back of the Volvo. Yeah. Don't really want to go. Don't really want to do this trip. I don't want to leave my best cousin, Kelly. I don't want to leave anybody. I'm fine. I'm happy. Plus, you left my dog there at another family. Found him a home. Halfway through, you left my hamster in the Mojave Desert.
Oh, no.
Which she said, for a better life, Laura. I'm still mad at her about this. I haven't gotten over this. My hamster. I always wonder if 40 years later, where's Laura? My hamster's name was Laura.
No.
You see how that just came out? Okay, my hamster's name was Laura. Why?
Oh, my goodness.
She was named after a character in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Laura Danker. She was the girl with
with the big boobs. Well endowed, Laura. That is so funny.
So leave it to me to name my hamster after a character in Are You There, God? It's Me,
seeing
Margaret.
that she had that name, she might have survived,
She could still be, every time I go to Arizona where my husband's parents live, I look for her. Just Laura.
Maybe her offspring by now. So,
yeah, right? Maybe fifth generation hamsters. But so we went to California. Mm-hmm. And where did we go? We went to Malibu. And Malibu was the total polar opposite from Mount Airy in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So we were all of a sudden, talk about the only one in the room. We were the only black people in the room. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was traumatizing. Yeah. For Matt, my brother, very outgoing, and Mr. Everyone Loves Matt. Oh, honey, Matt was like best friends with Steve McQueen's son in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Hanging out at Steve McQueen's house in Broad Beach. Oh, Steve took us in his Porsche and drove us on Sunset Boulevard. Okay.
Now, you mean Steve McQueen,
the actor. McQueen,
yes.
not
the black director from London, but yes.
Steve McQueen, the iconic actor, white Steve McQueen, who was, was legendary. Yeah. And his son, Chad, and Matt was in Malibu 5 minutes, and he was like a student body president. Like, I came home with my head down, crying every day because I hated that my mom made me do this awful trip. Mm-hmm.
This is like in the 70s. It's like
74.
74.
I was 9 years old and miserable.
Yeah.
So it took a minute to shake that off. And then everybody's like, oh, you got to meet Piper. You got to meet Piper. I'm like, who's Piper? Oh, she's the only other black girl in school. So nobody wanted to take me around in 5th grade, but Mrs. Nielsen, you know how certain teachers you never forget. She was like, who wants to take Holly around the school and show her around Webster Elementary? Nobody raised their hand. And so I'm sitting there going, oh, my God. I'll go back to Philly. And then she was like, Holly's dad was Gordon on Sesame Street, and all the hands went up. So I was like, oh, I see what you had to do there, Mrs. Nielsen.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
You need somebody, a card to play. You need a card to play. You need to know somebody. So I was like, I learned that lesson very early. Long story short, that was my beginnings. I went to Webster and then Malibu Park Junior High School, which actually now is an actual high school, not junior high. Or it's both, I think. So who was in my class? Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Sean Penn, Charlie Sheen, Jennifer Grey.
Wow.
And Danielle Spencer. Do you know who that actress is?
Yeah.
Who is she?
Yeah, she is Dee from What's Happening. Yeah.
Every day I deal with this, by the way.
Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
This is why I'm here, because I know you get me. So yes, Dee from What's Happening.
You're excited to see her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because
Dee from What's Happening?
Yes.
I was like, well, first of all, Charlie and Sean, they weren't even acting yet.
That's what I was saying, but she was.
Yes, but Dee was already on TV.
Yes.
That's why she was in Malibu.
With her attitude.
Oh, honey. Ooh, Rod. She was always telling on her big brother. So Dee was a superstar on TV. And a lovely young lady.
Yeah.
And so anyway, my point was they were all acting already and doing stuff. And I was kind of like, well, shoot, I kind of want to do that too. But my dad was like, no, you're going to get your degree first. And then we could talk about acting later. Like, okay. I won't fund any of this. Not mad. He was already mad we moved to Malibu.
Of course.
Because he thought it was superficial. And it kind of was.
And it was, yeah. In a way.
In a big way.
In a big way.
But I had, but my mom was like, screw you, I'm reinventing myself. So there was all that stuff. So
and that's her pattern.
That's her pattern.
Yes.
And so that's how I got into sort of acting.
Yeah.
But then I really found out after Sarah Lawrence, my passion was singing.
Okay.
And then I decided I needed to do some acting gigs to fund demos for singing. And I got a movie in my senior year of college called Howard the Duck.
Oh.
Now Howard the Duck at that point was a monstrous failure and ruined many careers. But now it's one of those movies that was so bad it's good now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a cult film.
It is.
And people love it. And they're always Googling me or Twittering me and saying, hey, Holly, you were in Howard the Duck. Whoa, that's so cool. Whereas, like, when the movie came out in 86, it was like, won't anybody put that on my resume.
And it was animated.
No, it was live action.
It was live action?
Yeah.
God, I don't remember it.
Oh, it was live action. Well, because
so they saw you.
Laura, it came from a comic book, right?
Yeah.
So it was like a Marvel-y type of comic. I don't even know if it was Marvel, but it was a comic book.
Yeah.
And I played a character who was in a fictional rock band. So I was singing.
Oh.
So that was cool.
That's cool.
And the group was called Cherry Bomb. And we were a diverse group of chicks.
Yeah.
And Leah Thompson was the lead singer and the lead in the movie. And so I got to sing
from Back to the Future.
That's right.
Yes.
So I got to sing a lot of my own stuff, and so that was like really cool. And it was a George Lucas film. I mean, this was supposed to be a big deal.
I liked it.
You did?
I liked it then. Yes, it didn't
Even
come back
then?
around. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time.
Well, it's probably going to get a reboot just because of how many people now think it's cool. But that time it was like, oh no, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. So that's how I ended up, sort of. So then once I graduated from school, I said, I'm going to go out for a couple gigs, see if I can make some money, get some demos.
Yeah.
I want to be a singer. And that one of those gigs was 21 Jump Street. And that was kind of like, 5 years later, I was still on that show.
So in that shot in Vancouver? And so your castmates on that show... Well, I know that Johnny Depp was one of them.
Yes.
Who else was on the show?
Dustin Nguyen, he's an Asian Vietnamese guy. He's now, I know people are always asking me, so for your listeners, people are always asking me, like, who's doing what? Where is it? Where are they? So we all know what happened with Johnny. Dustin, who was like my bestie on the show. We were roommates. I love him. He's like the Bruce Lee of Vietnam right now.
Oh, for real?
He has produced and created a whole industry and empire of movies that he's produced, and I think he's on a show called Warrior. It's on Cinemax. Anyway, and it's based on the teachings or something to do with Bruce Lee.
Okay.
But Dustin is badass, and he's still doing his thing and looks amazing. And has a whole family in Vietnam. Peter DeLuise, who was very popular.
Yeah.
Peter was very popular. He was somebody that I love because he was Dom DeLuise's son. And
Yes.
so remember, we moved to Cleavon Little's house in Malibu. There was only one tape in the VCR,
Yeah.
VHS, whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
And it was Blazing Saddles. So at 9 years old, Matt and I, we knew we watched it like 100 times.
Right.
And so Dom DeLuise was in Blazing Saddles. And so when I, years later, got to Jump Street and worked with Peter, I was like obsessed with the movie.
Yeah.
And of course, he knew the movie inside out, so we bonded. Peter is now one of the biggest directors in Vancouver. He stayed in Vancouver.
Okay.
And he directs a bunch of Hallmark movies, and he never stops working. Stephen Williams is still working. He was in The Shy. He played the captain in Jump Street, but he was in The Shy. He played a really scary role.
I love The Shy.
Shy's great. He played, I can't remember what the name of his character was, but he played a really...
Was he the older guy?
Yeah, he was like older.
You remember him, hon?
Yeah, Stephen Williams in The Shy. Yeah, he was mean. He was a mean guy.
Yeah.
Great guy, but he
I knew I recognized him from somewhere.
Yeah, great. And, it was just a really awesome, iconic show. And then I was all of a sudden a TV actress.
Yes, you were.
Trying to get a record deal.
Yeah.
Which in the 80s and 90s wasn't the thing.
No.
Now,
Yes.
Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez and everybody else, Demi Lovato and
It's
Zendaya.
like, of course. Yeah.
You can have, if you're on TV, that is your launching pad for a record deal. So my timing was a little off.
Yeah.
So I went from that and went to Cooper, and I got to sing the theme songs to both of them.
Yes, you did. I was just going to ask you about
That's
that.
the extent of my singing career.
All right, so you met Rodney, he was still playing for the NFL then?
Oh, yeah.
For the Raiders then?
Oh, no. When I met Rodney, he was playing for the Detroit Lions.
Oh, for the Detroit Lions,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But you fell in love with a football player.
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, which is like
did not want to, by the way.
No.
I was not looking for no quarterback. I don't know what I was looking for, but I was like, oh, an athlete,
Yeah.
and not a football player. But he just, he was really smooth.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to like walk away a couple times, but he just kept reeling me back in. And he's got a great heart, a sweet guy.
Oh, the
really
sweetest,
loving
sweetest
guy.
Yeah.
And he, I was like, do I want to have babies with him and like spend the rest of my life with him? I think so.
Yeah.
And so we've been together for almost 25 years now. So
Yes.
that was when I met him, he was with the Lions. And my dad was getting worse and worse. His Parkinson's had progressed.
So tell me when you found out about your dad's diagnosis.
I found out when I was a freshman in college at Sarah Lawrence.
Oh.
It was devastating because I thought I was going to have to drop out and become his caregiver. I went to the library at Sarah Lawrence. I was just saying this in my speech at the University of the Arts commencement speech. Like, I was telling the faculty and the parents, I was like, I had to look up everything on microfiche because, them kids now don't have microfiche. So they was like, they were like, what is that? I was like, Google it.
Yes.
And so
It's tedious.
to see what, so tedious, to see what Parkinson's disease was. And I saw that it was neurological and incurable, and I really struggled. Like, what was I going to do? So I wanted to quit college. My dad was like, oh, hell no, you are not quitting anything. So
Was it impacting him at that point?
Oh, yeah.
It was.
He was
Okay.
limping. He had Bell's palsy. His face, one of the side of his face was paralyzed. He was really struggling. It wasn't as bad as obviously it became, and he was still working on the Cosby Show. And, and sidebar, I'm just so glad that he didn't make it to see what happened with him because they grew up together with him, my dad, and Bill Cosby. So
Wow.
that's a whole nother movie. But Mr. Cosby gave him a chance to work in a very competitive environment, even though he had Parkinson's. So what happened with that, I always have that gratitude that he needed that job. And so my dad was struggling. And so after I graduated from college, and then I ran into you guys, you and your then husband or soon to be husband, and then I met Rodney. Rodney was like, we got to help other people who are dealing with Parkinson's because you have the funds, we have the means to help your dad, but what about families that don't? And that's how Holly Rod Foundation was created.
Yeah.
It was a compassionate care foundation for families impacted by Parkinson's. Because with Parkinson's disease, if you can't afford the medication, you are stuck.
You're like a prisoner in your body.
Completely.
Yeah.
You can't button your buttons. You can't go anywhere or do anything.
Yeah.
So
And from what I understand, like Alzheimer's robs you of your mind. Parkinson's leaves it intact. Is that correct?
Parkinson's you can develop dementia, which my dad had.
Okay.
So you end up almost having a combination of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's in many cases towards the end. It just depends. Everybody's different. My dad had severe dementia, and he wasn't able to talk, so it was rough at the end. But my husband was like, let's start this foundation, and that became very cathartic to be able to do something to help other people while you're watching your dad kind of waste away.
Right.
It felt good to be able to help people and learn that. And then, of course, fast forward, my brother gets the diagnosis many years later.
Yeah.
I thought I was done with Parkinson's disease. And then here comes Matt's diagnosis. He's only 55.
Yeah.
And just FYI, my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's in his mid-40s, which is very young.
It is young.
Young onset Parkinson's, they call it.
I should have asked you this earlier then, because I didn't realize this whole time living in Malibu, and going to Sarah Lawrence and then and going to Vancouver, acting on Jump Street, your dad is struggling with this disease.
Well, the disease hit my freshman year in Sarah Lawrence.
Okay.
So that's when we started to see what was going on.
Right.
But it was still a long period of time.
Yeah.
And all through Jump Street. So all through my college career. All through Jump Street.
Yeah.
Hang with Mr. Cooper. Rodney, meeting and marrying Rodney.
Yeah.
So it was, he was diagnosed and he lived with it for, good 20 years.
And was he here in Los Angeles by then?
I kidnapped him.
You did?
Yes, because he did not want to leave New York. He hated L.A.
Yeah.
If New York was the apple, L.A. was the lemon.
Yeah.
He hated L.A. Everything about it just made his skin crawl.
Right.
But this was where the work was. So he had to come here.
He had to come here.
And I had to drag him kicking and screaming once he got, really sick too.
Yeah.
Because I needed to be with him and he needed to have full-time care. So I became his caregiver.
Right. And what Rodney was saying is that a lot of people don't have the access and the resources that you guys did.
That's right.
At that time. So instead of looking for or funding research for a cure, to raise money for people who didn't have this access or these resources.
A cure is not going to help him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A cure is not going to help these people that are here now.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of time with the cure when, not to get political, but when George Bush was president, we stopped all the stem cell research. But that was the linchpin. Like that was going to take us to a cure. And then we got stopped because of all these ethical reasons and all this stuff. But the reality is that we wanted to help these people here, and Rodney was the one that said we should start a foundation.
How wonderful!
And then lo and behold, here comes RJ and Ryan, the twins, boy-girl twins, and then RJ gets diagnosed with autism.
Right.
And then we knew that we had to expand our mission to help families dealing with autism. That was a little bit different, dealing with your son versus your dad.
Sure.
And then we had to deal with all the stigma of autism. And we knew we had to become spokespeople for that because no one was talking about it. So it was kind of a lonely time in the 2000. The year was 2000 when he was diagnosed. But we knew we had the platform. We knew we had so many opportunities to have this conversation. And we knew that there were families out there that weren't seeing anybody have a conversation about what is autism, how do we help these kids, how misunderstood they are, stigma, all of that. And so when I think back, you guys, to 2000, and then I look up and we are 2019, and RJ Pete, who we were told would never do anything, and say things, talk, have friends, play sports, all that, is now a clubhouse attendant for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And is his story is so powerful. Yeah. And if I had seen a story like that when I was crying every single day because of this autism diagnosis, it would have given me hope. So that was one of the reasons why we wanted to document it and put it on TV and do Meet the Pete's, because I said, we need to show this story. Yeah. We need to show this kid working so that if people are watching, they're like, oh, that's a possibility? Yeah. We were told he would never do anything. Right. So it was more of a sentence than a diagnosis. Right. And now it's a diagnosis that you can, hope with interventions. That's with interventions, with hope, with compassion. The Dodgers are a compassionate organization. They hired him, they love him, but They didn't have to hire him. And because of that example, other kids are getting hired in the workforce. So it's a pretty cool thing.
That's amazing. So you had Ryan and RJ. They were born the same year as Miles in 1998?
97.
97.
Just a little bit earlier.
And then your dad died in 2002?
He died in 2002 when Robinson was born. Like maybe 3 days before Robinson was born. I was at my dad's funeral with a belly out to here.
Yeah. Well, this is what I remember. I remember seeing you at an event after your dad died. And you were out to here with Robinson, and you pulled me aside and you said, I've got to get this baby out of me.
Yeah.
Because I cannot bring this grief into him.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next thing I heard, Robinson had been born.
Yeah, so. He had to come. And we have a joke that Robinson and my dad passed each other on the way. Because when I tell you Robinson is exactly like his grandfather. He was like, I wish I could have met Granddad. And then there was the last one. I'm not sure what happened with this last one, Laura.
Roman.
I'm not sure what. I love Roman.
Yes.
And I'm always telling him, no offense. But
Why?
we're not sure how you came to be.
What's
where
he
did you...
like?
Well, he's just like the bonus kid. He's the cool kid, right? He's just Roman, and he's my doppelganger, right? But I had boy-girl twins. Like, wasn't that good enough?
Yeah.
And I had to go back for 2 more. Like, I'm not really sure what happened there. But I love having these 4 kids. It's so much work. So much work.
Yeah.
But it's a great little group. And I'm really it's a real blessing to have them.
Ooh.
I know.
4 kids,
we
3
unpacked
dogs.
A lot. And 3 dogs and Dolores.
And Dolores.
She's this independent 83-year-old
Yes,
living
she
her best
is.
life in Palm Springs.
Yes,
but
she
she's
is.
opinionated, and she will talk your ear off and tell you everything.
She's wonderful.
But she's awesome.
I'm so glad we got to talk about everything we talked about. I want to just reiterate how important that work is, because I asked you to tell that story as being your only one in the room story, because I know how isolating it can feel to have to care for it. I don't actually know that from personal experience.
It's hard.
But I know because Scott cared for his mom when she was dying of cancer. And it's an isolation, right?
Did you have help?
We did. We hired outside help
No, I mean
to help
other
me.
siblings.
No, not particularly.
See,
I did, but she was sometimes there
she's
and
not-
sometimes
yeah.
gone.
So you were the alpha
yeah. It was
son.
actually a gift, and it's something.
Yeah, because you got the gift of being there and being involved.
Yeah,
as hard as it was.
I didn't see that coming into it, but when I left it, I understood.
Right. Well, Matt is an amazing guy. We love him, but it was all on me. And
That's what I remember.
It was all on me, and Matt, filled in the blanks where he could. But it's a lot, and then especially when you're taking care of a child with special needs too. So that would put me in the sandwich generation, right?
Yes.
And it's something that it's hard to do, especially when you start caregiving so early. I started really caregiving at 19.
Yeah. Sandwich is when you're caregiving for your parent and for a special needs child.
You are the meat in that sandwich.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
got
you
one
were.
on each side. So
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, who's the squeaky wheel?
So how
it's great.
do you take care of you?
Oh, well, I day drink. No, I'm just kidding. I have the best martini ever right here. You know what? I find time for me. I have to schedule it. And my kids are so evolved. Like, those moments where you realize, oh, I did something right. Like sometimes you go, oh, wait, I didn't do, when you see how messy their rooms are or something they don't do, you're like, I should have done this. But there are moments where I realize when I say mom needs to I need some time. They run. They're like, Mom.
Right.
Have your mommy time out.
Yes.
Because when you do that, you're a better mom and you're
Yes, you
more
are.
relaxed. So I get a day by myself, Sometimes I'll go just have a spa day, lunch by myself. I like being alone. And I don't need a bunch of people around me. I like doing the girlfriend's lunch thing, but I prefer just going, having a nice, delicious meal and a glass of wine by myself.
How nice to enjoy your own company.
How nice, right? A lot of people can't do that.
No.
I always laugh at my girlfriend, Leah Remedy, because she always says, oh, my God, you go out by yourself? It's so awful. They clear the other side. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's like table for one? Oh, how awful. And she's like, I got to have people around me.
Yeah.
And I love her. But we actually, talk about that a lot. And I think, wow, that's interesting. I'm good by myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
I write. I channel my dad.
Yeah.
And I journal a lot.
Nice.
And so that's been really helpful.
Beautiful. All right, so we're going to move into the Dear Laura. This one is, Dear Laura, When my son Cooper was 2 years, 9 months old, he was diagnosed with having PDD-NOS, which is basically a nice way of saying autistic. I was the only one in the room because I felt like I was the only single mom, the only minority mom, and now the only mom with a special needs child. I like to call it the trifecta. But Cooper is the only mixed-race child and the only one with special needs in the room. And I'm fine to bear the burden of my trifecta, but I really don't want my kids to feel alone because of his diagnosis. So,
well, first of all, I feel that 100%. Just for people that don't know, PDD-NOS stands for Pervasive Development Disorder, not otherwise specified. Now, why do I know this?
Yeah, why do you know that?
Because Archie got that diagnosis too.
Ah.
And it was so confusing. Can you imagine taking your child and someone said PDD-NOS?
No.
What?
Yeah.
What is that an acronym for?
Right.
It's just so scary.
It's very vague.
Oh, it's first of all,
Yeah.
it is basically autism.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why they diagnose that so much or why it's basically an out, not otherwise specified.
Yeah.
How is that going to help me resolve this?
Right.
So for your dear Laura, Mom, I would just say that here's the good news. If your son or daughter is diagnosed with autism today, at the very least, you have so many resources. In 2000 and before that and years ago, we had nothing. Moms were getting blamed. People were getting locked up in institutions. We have resources now.
Yeah.
So the good news is you have tools and people you can talk to, and you have a show like Meet the Pete's where you can see what your future might look like.
Yeah.
Like these are things I didn't have. So I do feel like that's a very good sign, right? Very good. The hardest part is, first of all, you're not the only one in the room because there are so many people in the room. You just have to find them.
Yes.
There are mixed kids of all races. There are kids of all creeds. There are parents that are dealing with this. You are going to find so much support on your journey.
Yeah.
You just have to look for it. It's right there.
And so much of it is online, right? Like you can go to online
tons of it is
support groups.
online. But, you can go to hollyrod.org. You can get information there. That's our nonprofit website.
Okay.
We just opened RJ's Place, and RJ's Place is a compassionate care center for families impacted by Parkinson's and autism, but our autism programs there are really cool. I just went to an event, and guess what? You were there yesterday.
Yes.
Where Special Needs Network in Los Angeles does free summer camps. They didn't have any free summer camps in 2000 when RJ was diagnosed. Now, I had the resources to pay for a summer camp for him, but what about a family that doesn't?
Yes.
So there are so many options. That is the good news.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is just advocate like crazy.
Yep.
Roll up your sleeves, develop a team for your child, recruit people to that team like you running the NBA draft.
Yes.
Get your child supported so when you're gone, he still has people around him.
Yeah.
So Team RJ was very robust.
Yes.
There are people still on Team RJ, and he's 21 now. So build that team for your kid.
I love that. And I love, what you were talking about, like vocational training.
Yes.
I know this sounds like a young child, so maybe it's too soon for that, but just like what you were talking about, like looking people in the eye, shaking their hand, like knowing what to do in these uncomfortable situations. I think adults need that. A lot of adults.
I think everybody needs that.
They don't know what to do.
They don't teach that in school.
Yeah.
They don't teach vocational training. They don't teach that. They don't teach financial literacy. So many things that we really actually need.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. There's so many options now. And that's what your dear Laura, Mom, can really hold on to. I literally had a conversation with a woman who just got 2 diagnoses in one day of her 2-year-old and her 3-year-old.
Wow.
And she had a moment where she knew a friend of a friend, and she got on the phone with me. I don't know her. And I told her that you have really good news, that you are going to have so many options right now.
Yeah.
It seems overwhelming, which it is, 2 kids on the spectrum. But the future is very bright because we're having these conversations right now.
Yeah. Well, and that, thank you for answering that. And just the work you're doing is so important. And you're so tireless with it. I'm so grateful to you for that.
Thank you.
And awe-inspiring. It really is.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk about it.
Please. It's like I said, I want to shout it from the rooftops, honestly. Do you split it 50-50, like half to people who need resources for dealing with Parkinson's?
That's a good question. We do have Parkinson's disease programs that we donate to, especially at the Keck School of Medicine at USC, where Rodney went, his alma mater, and they took care of my dad. So we're very indebted to them. So we support a lot of their funding for movement disorders.
Yes.
And then we have the specific programs for autism as well. It's a little interesting of a mission, but the things they have in common are really just that both of them are very misunderstood and both of them require lots of support from the community.
Yeah, they do. And the families.
Yes.
So they could be educated as well and know what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So the Hallmark movies, the murder mystery.
Yes.
Yes. Are they still coming out? Did you finish?
So just for those of you, I'm still working on TV, which is a big blessing. A little sad that Meet the Pete's is not going to continue. We found that out, so they're not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we just got that news, and it's all good. We got 2 seasons of a show.
Yeah,
first reality, unscripted show to feature someone with autism ever, really. So this is a big deal. So I'm very grateful to Hallmark Channel for giving us 2 seasons.
Yes.
And before that, we were on the OWN network on For Pete's Sake. So we had 4 seasons of this show. So that's a lot. So we're like overwhelmed with gratitude. For Morning Show Mysteries, which is on my mystery movie wheel.
Yes.
That's on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries channel.
Yes.
Which is a different channel from Hallmark Channel, but in the family, starring myself and Rick Fox. And we have a commitment for more episodes or more movies.
Okay, good.
So we'll probably shoot those this summer.
Okay.
We've shot 5 movies so far, and it's been really an amazing